Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Does a great job covering the NFL. We will get into the Eagles. We'll get into the NFC East, as well as the Beckham deal, but kind enough to join us on a Tuesday. How you been, pal?
Doing great. We're almost there to real football.
Yeah, we are almost there. You know what? Before we get to the Eagles and the quarterback situation and Doug's comments, just kind of an overview, your thoughts on the Beckham contract. I think ultimately he's worth the money. Yeah, he comes with some headaches, but he played this one the right way. The Giants did what they said they were going to do, and Beckham did what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, Q, it was a professional negotiation, and you know, Odell knew his value to the team, and as you were saying, they knew he's the guy that makes that offense go because he spreads the field out. He makes everybody better, and over the past 4 years or so of his career, no one's put up more numbers. I know he was hurt last year with a broken fibula, but he's a guy that's going to go out there and make a game effort, and hopefully it'll equate to some wins. We talked about earlier how Eli Manning has only made the playoffs 2 times in the last 9 seasons. And this Giants team is kind of turning themselves around, but it's going to have to be produced on the field. But they paid him what he needed to be paid. And let's face it, when you see guys like Sammy Watkins and Brandon Cook getting big deals, he deserves it as well.
Oh, no doubt. And I also think, you know, when you look at what he means to that offense, and as I said, listen, they got to start winning some games, as you mentioned. They've shown that they have now, we're going for it this year, right? We lock up our star receiver. We turn around, we draft Barkley. We solidify the offensive line. They're all in. They know that the window with Eli over the next couple of years is closing rather quickly, and they locked up a player that I believe is worth, he's worth the money. Comes with the headaches, but he's worth the money.
He definitely is, and now they're loaded on offense. You know, almost a fantasy football dream at every position. They have a very good young tight end who's emerging. Saquon Barkley, if that hamstring's coming together, which most people are telling me it is, he's going to make a huge impact in the passing game, the running game from running that position. You talked about the offensive line, and now Odell's happy, and that's just going to open the field up for Shepard and the rest of the receivers.
All right, what's your thoughts on the Eagles? And, you know, Foles has just looked horrible in the preseason, and it's amazing. People wanted the Eagles now to turn around and trade him at his highest point and highest value, when yet there's no guarantee that Carson Wentz was going to be healthy. And I'm wondering, is it just possible now that they didn't realize he was going to progress as quickly as possible? But I believe from the get-go, they had to have Foles' insurance policy. Now, granted, they didn't have a lot of offensive players. He hasn't played well in the preseason, and now we're creeping up on a week or so before the regular season opener Thursday night against Atlanta. And, you know, Doug was a little salty the other day, but yet he's come out and he said that he's going to name a starter on Friday. I mean, you told me, I think a week or so ago, you seemed pretty adamant it's going to be Foles. Do you still believe it will be?
I still believe it is, Q. You know, I know he said not great success, 2 interceptions, a bunch of fumbles, and sacked 6 times, but the Eagles are hanging their hat on. It's a vanilla offense at this point in the season. The line is not who we think they are right now because they have people coming in and out that probably are not going to play. Particularly Jason Peters has not played in the preseason. So they're hanging their hat on the fact that when the regular season, the light is going to come on with Foles. But you always have to keep in the back of your mind, is he that guy that was the Super Bowl MVP last season, or was he the guy that almost quit football after his experience in St. Louis?
Well, I think I can answer that right now. I think he's somewhere in between. I mean, if the guy was a starter, he would have been a starter in this league over the last several years. 4 teams, 4 seasons, that's a journeyman quarterback. I mean, that's just how it is. I think my only concern with this team is the complacency issue, and I'm not suggesting they're going to be fat cats. They're going to have the, quote, Super Bowl hangover. They're going to be complacent, but a lot of times complacency derails teams that are vying or at least having a shot to win a championship and or, in this case, repeat. I mean, it's really tough to do because so many teams are going to be gunning for them.
You're correct, and every season is different, and that's why Malcolm Jenkins is saying he didn't really like that Super Bowl paraphernalia in the locker room, reminding them of their past success. This team has to stay hungry, and we know there has not been a repeat Super Bowl champion since the Patriots back in 2003, 2004. So, you know, there's a lot of things that can derail a championship team, and the Eagles got to watch these landmines. Right now, I think their biggest problem is health. They have a lot of guys that are beat up and coming back from injury. You're not really sure if Alshon Jeffrey's coming back from that rotator cuff surgery, how Jason Peters doing, and he's rehab. And Jay Ajayi, his knees are kind of bulky. So there's a lot of things out there. that this team has to navigate around. But I fully expect them to be ready for the Falcons. But right now, you have to wonder, is there a little doubt out there?
Oh, no doubt. And then we're seeing some teams with some of these major injuries. Washington, Minnesota losing 6 players, and then Jacksonville. I think that's a crushing blow to Jacksonville, losing Lee. And as much as the players want to come out and blame the NFL in the preseason, listen, that hit can occur in week 1, but that's a huge blow to that offense.
It is. And Jacksonville, they're going to build their offense around Leonard Fournette and that big offensive line. Blake Bortles will probably go back to his caretaker role, throwing about 25 times or less in a game. But they need some receivers other than Moncrief to step up. He's coming over from Indianapolis. They're a team that's going to be built around their defense, but that South Division is getting a lot better. You see the Texans getting healthier, and now they have Deshaun Watson back there, and Indianapolis is going to be back in the mix as well with Andrew Luck.
When you handicap the AFC, and we know the Patriots are going to be one of the best teams, really by default in the AFC East. When you look at Jacksonville, when you look at Pittsburgh, I mean, what team after those 3 do you believe, okay, this can be a team that was on the outside looking in, or this was a borderline playoff team, or this is a team that I think can make a nice little run this year?
Yeah, and Q, we always talk about every year there's at least 4 teams that make the playoffs. It's going to be new. So somebody's going to step up. And, I usually go divisionally. So when you look at the AFC East, it's the Patriots all the way. Maybe it could be the Ravens in AFC North. They're a team that's kind of coming back together. Flacco, there seems to be a fire lit underneath them. They had Collins running the football, and they brought in some playmakers at the receiver position. And that defense always is going to be very stout. So 9-7 last year. I think the Ravens could be back in the mix. Everybody is all excited about the Bengals after that great preseason game last week. But let's face it, the Bills are not a very good team, and anybody's going to look good against them. So I think right now the Ravens you have to look at. And then I'll throw in the L.A. Chargers, who finished very strong last year under Anthony Lynn, 9-7, a team that had dealt with a lot of injuries. They're still got guys injured, but they have a lot of firepower in offense and defense.
Over on the NFC side, when you look at the NFCs, we've kind of documented for a while now, but then you look at the North, the South, the West. Listen, I still looking around. As long as Aaron Rodgers is back under center for Green Bay, you give him a puncher's chance. Now, the NFC North is going to be an extremely competitive division because you have a second-year Trubisky who's still a raw quarterback. You have Cousins now in Minnesota. You have Stafford in Detroit, and you still have Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. That's a tough division.
It really is. There's going to be no gimme games out there because, let's face it, the Packers, even with Aaron Rodgers, their defense and their running game is under par. So they got to step it up. And as you were saying, the Bears getting better with Mitchell Trubisky, a very underrated defense, a great secondary there. I think they're going to be in the mix. And the Vikings have one of the best defenses in the league. So that's going to be a top-to-bottom division where it's going to be very tough. And they may beat each other up, kind of like the NFC East. And it may be a team that is like a 10-11 win team that wins that division, but they were going to be better than their record shows.
Can you see the NFL, amidst Jerry Jones's comments about expanding the regular season 18 games that'll put a substantial amount more money in the owner and the leagues and the players' pockets? Can you see a scenario where they go to 2 games in the preseason, they expand the regular season to 18? And I also want to get your thoughts. Are you a belief that the preseason is meaningless?
Well, Q, I'll take your second question first. I really do think it's become more meaningless because with roster cuts being only one big cut on September 1st, going from 90 down to 53, you're going to see a lot of guys that just aren't going to make the team playing this last preseason. So it does make a lot of these games meaningless, and they already know a lot of times who their top guys are on their teams in terms of their roster, and they don't want to get them injured. So, maybe they could go to some kind of formula where they play more regular season games, but the key thing there is injuries. Can a team get through an 18-game season, which is just going to be a marathon? And we see every year around November, December, teams are kind of limping home, bringing guys on and off of IR, off the practice squad, because they just need healthy bodies. So right now, unless they pay the Players Association a great deal of money, to kind of make that change, I just don't see that happening. I think they'll stick to 16 games. Maybe they'll get rid of one preseason game altogether. But, it's all about money, and they always talk about it's a 10-game home ticket plan, and they want to sell it that way, even though it's 8 games and 2 exhibitions.
Yeah, listen, you bring up good points. Where I would just slightly disagree, I think at least 2 games are needed. I don't think what you did last year, you can't build upon last year. Last year's done. It's months ago, different roster, different players, sometimes different coaches, different schemes, if you will. I think you need at least 2 games to just get acclimated, because we know no matter what, the first 2 games of the regular season, it's going to be bad football. I get it. It's an extension. So when you think about it, you get 2 bad games of preseason, 2 bad games of regular season. But I at least want to know if my offense is out there, because typically defenses are always ahead of the offenses. You get a nice series or 2, and you can take some of that confidence and you bridge it, and you take it into the first week or 2, even though we know, because of the CBA, not a lot of practice time, we know for a fact the first couple games of the regular season are bad, but I still think you should have 2. I would not extend the regular season 18 because, again, if they're going to shove player safety down my throat, you're sticking these guys out there. 2 more games in a regular season to stretch the season that's already hard enough. Bodies are just taking an enormous amount of abuse, and guys are running out of gas. To me, they're more susceptible or prone to injuries. And now you got to take in this too, Lloyd. When was Super Bowl going to be played now? We're creeping into now March that you're going to get a Super Bowl? Late February?
That'd be crazy. Yeah, that'd be crazy. You're correct. And the calendar right now, it already fits perfectly in terms of the season. And you know, the only thing is, as you were saying, do they need all these preseason games?
Right.
And if they did cut it back to 2, that would be nice. And maybe add some more practice time, or add these sessions where teams practice with each other. That always seems to keep them kind of sharp and keep things at a lively pace. And it's actually real football out there, because, you know, nothing's going to be worse than this Thursday when we're seeing guys out there. It just doesn't matter. And then, as you're saying, these veterans do need some key reps, because let's go face it, week 1, you are going to see a lot of the fumbles, a lot of missed assignments, a lot of penalties, and people are going to be shaking their head. But eventually they get it going around late September, early October, and you see a very good product out on the field.
Yeah, we have 1 more week to get through it. I'm curious to see what goes on Friday with Doug, because like I said, I don't think it's, you know, a lot of guys have been calling up saying, well, there's no way you can have Nick Foles out there week 1 and they'll go to Carson Wentz in week 2. I don't understand what the line of thinking is there. There's nowhere it's written that Nick Foles can only start 1 game. He can start week 1 and 2 and 3. The bottom line is, part of me thinks they didn't think Carson Wentz was going to progress as quickly as he has in his rehab and looked as good. And the other part of me still believes, they'll never admit it, I do think there's in the back of their minds, they're a little tentative to stick him out there, because the first thing you got to realize is, let me get hit first, right? You get over the mental aspect of it, but let me take a couple hits here and there to see if my body bounces back up. And part of me thinks that they're still, I don't want to say scared, but they're pretty cautious. And look, at the end of the day, if he's cleared, he's cleared. You can't keep him in bubble wrap.
Yeah, and that's going to be up to the trainer staff. Is he fully cleared? Is he ready to go? Let's not forget this injury occurred in week 13 last year, pretty late in the season. So he's only had about 9 months or so to get that leg in shape. And you don't want to rush him out there, and then he takes a hit, and next thing you know, you're holding your breath. And you just have a total situation that's going to last the entire season. So I think Foles is going to be named the starter. They're going to go with him as their guy, trying to coach him up. They'll probably put in some plays that he likes out there. And then you'll see Carson Wentz probably around, you know, before the 4th game. He'll definitely be out there. And it also depends on how the team does. If there's urgency out there, you know, if they lose to Tampa Bay, which I don't fully expect in week 2, that'll definitely turn up the dial. Next thing you know, everybody will be begging for Wentz to be out there.
Yeah, exactly correct. All right, always appreciate it. Good stuff. We will talk next week, and we'll really go in-depth with the season right on the horizon. Always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
All right, Q. Talk to you later.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance, of course, does a good job with the NFL Network, covers the NFL as well. Kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline.